Well, I think, when we talk about 4A and 4B, we really need to put it in the context of the whole building. When we first found this property, we felt that God had given us a property that could begin to accommodate our vision to reach Central Alberta. So we always had in mind that we would expand this building as far as we could. It was just a matter of timing.
The reason that we went ahead to expand our building is especially our second service, our 11 o'clock service, since about probably back to 214 at least, was more than 80% full. It was basically to make more room for the people that haven't come yet.
We're up at 3 services, and I think once you are 80% full, that's about as full as you're going to get, because people are reluctant to come into a space that seems full. So we just needed more room, and that's what incentivized us to go ahead with phase 4.
It was October of 2018 where we brought this to the congregation after we'd done the work of determining how much this was going to cost, and it was about it was like $18 million, and so it's a big ticket. And we actually went to the congregation and they said, you know what, let's do this. And at the same time, if you remember, we also said, and what do you think about taking 10% off the top of everything we give and using it in Central Alberta for other like-minded organizations that just have a heart for reaching Central Alberta for Jesus? And you know what, the congregation all said, like, let's do it.
As we as a committee understood the scope of the interruption to the congregation once we moved them out of the sanctuary was huge. And so as a committee, we thought it would be better that if we had a schedule that we could manage. And so we went to the church board and recommended that we phase it into over a 2-year period. And as I look back on it now, if we'd have just barged ahead with 4, we could easily have a $10 or a $12 million debt.
We had decided that 10% of the funds, you mentioned that earlier, would get dispersed to groups in Central Alberta that were doing kingdom work. And we didn't know how that would go, but I was speaking at an AGC conference for AGC pastors in June of probably 2019. And there was a pastor there from Delburn, Paul Meyer. He'd been there 20, 30 years, but he had to farm to support himself. And the church had just got to the point where they were able to support him. But God was doing an amazing work with youth in that town. And Paul's like, he's as old as me. So he's an old guy, and they needed a youth pastor. And they didn't have any money for a youth pastor. And I talked to him at that conference, said, Paul, come and talk to us. He did. And we were able to take some of that money, that 10%, give them money. They hired a youth pastor, and things are going amazing out there.
One of the God stories with this whole phase 4 was right from the beginning. We had to go get a building permit from the county of Red Deer, and that building permit was going to cost us $56,000. And so we're scratching our head and say, wow, that's a lot of money. So we decided that we would go over and just have a friendly chat with the county to see if maybe there was some room or some movement in that building permit fee. Well, lo and behold, we met with them for probably about an hour. We shared with them our vision and what we're doing and what we're planning to use the building for, and the fact that the building was going to be used not just by us, but by the community. And, it was a building for the county of Red Deer, for the city of Red Deer as well. Well, lo and behold, they reduced our building permit fee down to $10,000 from $56,000.
Obviously, when you're getting into expansion, whether it's your house or a church, it's going to be disruptive. And we knew that going into it. And the big disruption was going to be, what do we do when the sanctuary is being redone? The pews come out, the seats go in.
We had to literally figure out what were we going to do with 1,000 people in our building. So we dispersed them into the youth wing, and we dispersed them into the chapel and the gym. And we actually made the gym the focus of our attention. So the pews, the old pews, moved in there, and we actually surrounded the gym with a 16-foot drape. And we tore the sound system down in here, and we moved it over to the gym and set it all up with staging, and we had screens. And from there, that was our main sanctuary for the summer. And then we broadcasted from there into the youth wing, and we also broadcasted into the chapel. And then we also had our online audience.
I'm just really proud of the staff. They played well. I think our congregation played well, and just knew that, hey, we'll get through this, and there's light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah. The cafe area became a kind of a congregating area. And so we had a lot of great community experience over the summer. But people didn't rush out. And yeah, it was tight, but there was that exciting feel that, it's hard to move here. We need room. And it became, we've often struggled with, some people, they want a small church experience. We had the best of every world that summer. We're still a big church, right. But we had a small church experience. One of the great highlights from that summer was when we did the baptism in the youth wing.
Yeah.
We had the baptismal tank in there, and people were in the balconies looking down, and it was like you were if you're in the tank, you're surrounded by worship, by prayer, and it was just kind of pouring down on them. That was a really exciting time. That was one of the best baptisms we've had in-house, I think.
It's really cool what we see now on the other side of it. A beautiful foyer. The sanctuary has been all reset and redone with the seats, and God's been good. It's actually all paid for. I think when we kind of separated and went with 4A, that total budget I think was somewhere around the 3.8, 3.9 million, and then there's some other add-ons that we had. I think if I remember right, we were just a little over 4 million. We actually came in under budget, and we came in at about 3.7 and change. October 1st of 2018, you could say we didn't have a dime. And so when we signed off on doing it at the tail end of October, we had about 100,000 and change in that month of October. And then we also had our building fund offering that came in. And so the end of October, we had a good start. The money that came in over the course of, 2 years, we would probably about a year and a half, was about $3.2 million. And then we also, the board made that decision about some long-term contingency funds. So we had about $775,000 that had been sitting in a long-term contingency fund. And we just realized, it's there for maybe projects, it's there for rainy days. And we just realized, it could help us with this piece. And so we brought it forward and we said, let's just add it to the mix. And so our total giving throughout phase 4A was about 3.9.5, somewhere in there.
So at phase 4A, I remember really clearly it was month number 4, and I got tasked all this literature. It was a vast amount of material, included samples and brochures and information. And I was originally just asked to do some research. The building committee had narrowed it down to 3 kind of companies that they were really interested, and they wanted me to understand what seat would be the best long-term. Was it best to do a pew versus a combo, like a seat and a pew? And they just really wanted to know, again, if there was anything that they were missing. So I kind of got to look at all the details, see a big picture, and again, pitch those ideas to them about a month after I had done my research.
My role on the building committee for phase 4A was to act more like a technical consultant. I felt my role was to give technical vision to what this building project would need for lighting and for sound and for acoustical treatment.
My specific involvement was helping out with interior design towards the end, which is what you're seeing kind of getting finished up.
I was involved in the 4A addition or revamp. By installing the baffles.
Oh, one of the great, even the blue and green glass.
Yeah.
That's a huge win.
Yeah.
If you a
cool.
Canucks logo in there,
Yeah.
the colors are all there. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
I get inspired by these kind of projects. The foyer gathering spaces that we worked hard on to make sure that there were pockets throughout the church that people could actually gather. It's a challenge. It's how can we make sure that those spaces get used? So it's kind of coming into the actual space, getting a feel, and you want whoever walks through those doors of the church to be excited about using one of those spaces.
So it involved lots of different people. It included the facility team. They were curious, Charlene, what type of floor are we gonna go? Are these seats gonna be durable, and how do we clean them? And then in regards to sound, it was what was the location of the sound? And cameras played a factor in how we even figured out just the placement of our seats. Then it was the interior designer. She was curious what color we were thinking. We were gonna have black or gray, hey, even red, and just wanted to have a consistency. So we all had to work together so that the space functioned to the best that we could do as we worked together.
So the architects had most of it designed, and I just came along and did the nuts and bolts and how everything fit together and jointed together.
So at the very beginning, there was lots of opinions. Should we have pews? Should we have seats? And I remember I was curious myself. And so on different research projects, I went into Calgary and I went up to Edmonton. I even took a friend at one point and we tested out, could a baby carrier in a stroller, how would that work as a young mom? Would these seats again hold a toddler, for example? That was a big question. But all of these questions, I did some quick calculation and I realized that ultimately, as a congregant, you would sit on the seat for about 52 hours in a year. And then I thought about all the other people, the people that come through our building for funerals and for Christmas concerts. And I thought, that is their first taste of church. That is their first taste of our building. And I thought that was way more important than the length of time that maybe I would sit on the seat. It was more about the new person. It was about the person that first came to church. And I wanted their experience to be warm and welcoming. And these seats seem to do that best.
We have our special joints that lock everything together, and sometimes just fasteners allow wood to move still. And so all that wood, if it was left alone, it would all warp and twist. Some of it is a little bit twisted, but we put our blocking in to make sure it wouldn't do that. But there's actually a dovetail joint on every single board. Yeah, there's at least 300 connections to the ledger board that go all the way around the two walls there, and then from there we, in our unconventional way, we came up with a finger joint to join pieces because it was such a long span, especially on the far west wall. There is full 20 feet.
I was incredibly proud when we asked our congregation, hey, would you be willing to come and join us and remove all of our pews and relocate them into the gym? We were getting ready to donate those to other churches and camps in the area. And these husky men came and just pew by pew, they were taking them out, and it was like lightning speed.
Well, I think, one of the questions that always comes up when we're in a building project is, could you have used this money somewhere else? And of course we could. There's lots of places you can use money, but we felt that the vision that we had was so big. We believe with all of our hearts that God's going to pour out His Spirit in Central Alberta.
Yeah.
I mean, that's been our heartbeat from day one. We're not Phoenix. You have to put people somewhere. And in faith, you step out and say, we're going to make room for what we see God doing. And so making room has been a big thought along with getting ready.
So CrossRoads has invested a lot in technology in the Phase 4A and the Phase 4B, because we are the biggest venue in Central Alberta, and I think there's a sense of responsibility to do whatever happens on that stage well, be it sound or lights. Or even cameras, bringing it out to the world. And my personal feeling is that the job of technology is to take a magnifying glass and to put it over whatever God's doing on the stage, whether it's the sermon, or whether it's the music or the worship, or if there's drama, or if there's something else going on. Our job is to highlight that.
Well, I would say for those gathering spaces, I would hope that at least one of them appeals to that one person who walks through the door, that they feel comfortable sitting in any of those spaces, particularly at least one of them, that they can connect to somebody, they'll show up next Sunday to gather with those people. Even to enjoy, hey, we sat at the one with the wood wall, let's sit at the one with the brick wall. Just to change up even their life, but in a really awesome way.
For those that attend church regularly, you sit in a seat, and hopefully it's a positive experience for you. But for that new person, for that person that's come to a church for the very first time, and my usher can very clearly see that there's 2 seats there or 3 seats there, it is just amazing to watch that transition as they walk in and they present the seats to them. And you can just tell on their faces that they just feel safe. They feel that this is somewhere that they can sit down and they can be a part of this, and they're not overwhelmed. I don't know if you can remember, but in the past, at least I can, you used to have pews, and then there would be a purse and a jacket and something else and it just was always a little bit awkward to bring someone new into that space, where now I see it's done with ease, and it's really warm and inviting.
When people come into this building, I think I really want them to feel that they can access Jesus here.
I hope when people approach the building that they feel welcome and intrigued. And then once they're in the space, I want them to feel comfortable enough to linger.
So yes, our phase 4A is absolutely complete. It's 100% done.
We know with 4B, as we look to what that looks like when it's done, we don't know when that is. Obviously, it's been delayed.
The best answer for when 4B will happen is when we need to make room for more, which means our facility as it exists now is fully used.
What got me the most excited about phase 4A project was to see a vision from the planning stage right through to conception.
And truthfully, I think that's what 4A and 4B is it's expanding the church as a facility, a community facility, not just CrossRoads Church.
The whole reason for our church is to reach out to the community, and that's what we're doing. When we're done phase 4 in its totality, it's going to be the most amazing facility, the most amazing venue in Central Alberta. Probably one of the biggest stages that we have. So not only is this going to serve our church, but it's going to serve our community in a lot more ways than we could even envision sitting here today.
Yeah, I know people are asking when 4B is done, are we actually done? And I think we have to go back to what, I was there in 1997, 98, when the leadership around the room said, what is it that's in our heart that we want for Central Alberta? And it was always about reaching those that don't know Jesus. And I don't think you can ever be done that in Central Alberta. There's too many people. And while we're one church, we know that many churches it takes to actually reach Central Alberta for Jesus. And we just got to make sure we do our part. And so we got 21 acres here. Eventually this building will be complete when we finish 4B, but I don't think the work of reaching Central Alberta is done.